So you have an introduction? What do you do? Just start, go, start?
Yeah, well, let me just thank you for inviting me to your space here. I'm really glad that I set this appointment up before I thrashed myself at the Ninja Lab just a couple days ago.
Yeah, good planning.
Worked out, yeah. So here we are. We're at Massage Therapy by Michele, right? That's what we call your business? Great. We're here in Hudson, and Michele is probably the best, I wouldn't say probably, she is the best massage therapist that I know as far as athletics go. I don't do the whole foo-foo, like, ding, 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 like touch your hands around, like, oh, does that feel good? No, I want recovery. I want to fix my body because I put it through hell. And I want to, I'm here to talk with Michele and find out, you know, what's your history? I mean, I know a little bit about it, but let's just recap. Because the one thing that I do when I talk to other friends of mine who are in sports, I'm like, she's worked on Olympians. Like that. If you need to know anything, she's worked on Olympians.
Yeah.
So that's my starting point.
And my starting point from that perspective is that you and everyday athletes work just as hard as those Olympic athletes to keep the endurance going in your body. You just don't have a massive support team behind you doing the work to get your body to where you dream of going. So my role in that journey is, like you said, the recovery portion of what the hell did I do to my body? When people come into my office, it's because they have pain that no one else has had a diagnosis of, or they've been given a random diagnosis of arthritis in the knee, but there's pain in the hip. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the body that plays out with tensegrity. From the ankles to the shoulders, your body needs to recover. Some people work out and say they're only working legs day or they're only working arms day, but there's no just legs day or arms day, because the counterbalance is your legs or your arms, the way that your body works. So when we talk about the road to recovery, when I'm working with an athlete, I look at their journey, at their perspective, dream, and say the start point is your pre-workout. What are we going towards? Where is your baseline? What's happening with your body now? Then we build up to the moment that you are performing at whatever you're trying to go for, your goal. Then there's the post-event and the recovery time after that, because there's more of a psychological perspective of analyzation of self after you get through the jump of conquering your goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
So when I'm talking journey of a person's body, I'm in the commitment of looking at the whole person through the entire journey. Regardless of whether they're looking at that perspective, which is why in my journey I still travel to Ocean City, Maryland and back, Central New York and back, and I work on people at great distances because they have always been a part of that journey, and I am a part of why their body continues to move and recover, and essentially without that they're in pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been there. I've been in pain. You know, you've been up there for me in my journey. You know, with what I self-diagnosed as IT band syndrome. I mean, I've had MRIs done, X-rays done, all that stuff. Physiologically, they haven't found anything wrong with my knee, and the doctor's like, "Well, if you can stand the pain, have at it," you know.
Right.
And that only worked so well because I did a Ragnar race back in September. You know, this is February when we're filming. And it felt like somebody put drywall screws into my knees and just like,
yeah. I remember reading that, and I had to scroll past it fast because I was like, oh man, there's so many. But my perspective of that is there's actually acupuncture points that are essential for you to learn to self-treat when you get to that point where you're trying to continue in the middle of a race. Now what do I do? And then your memory recall will say, all right, Michele said to hold this point here. Not to massage it, not to beat it up, but just to hold it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like, oh, maybe I should do acupuncture, try these other avenues. Or is
And so when I take a full analysis of somebody, one of the things that I look at, and when you're talking about all on the right side or all on the left side, that ties to the gallbladder meridian when you're looking at the body in terms of acupuncture or 5-element theory. So there's a lot more in-depth thought process that goes on behind the work that I'm applying to your body, which is why I still love massage therapy after 20 years. It's not a boring protocol of start at the feet, move to the head, work on the arms, go to the legs.
Checklist.
Right. I often run out of time. And I don't know if it's that I'm getting older and slower, but I am finding that I'm doing longer and longer appointments. More of my clientele is sticking with the hour and a half to the 2-hour appointment. Because when you get in to start doing and releasing trigger points, it's like, I liken it to a Candyland game where you're just kind of like, going from here to there, and then you go there, and then you go up here, and then Chutes and Ladders kicks in, and you're all the way back down to the toe, because you're following the patterns in the body in which you put the injuries in. When I'm analyzing the body, I'm actually looking at the entire spiral dynamic of how you put injury in your body. So you told me that an injury 30 years ago, 20 years ago, is in your elbow.
Yeah.
So that injury, and I say 30 years ago because sometimes there's actually injuries go back to when you were a child, so you fell out of a tree.
Right. Who knows how many times I fell out of a tree.
Right, exactly, or whatever, you know, you have, whatever injuries are impacted into your body. So when I get you onto the table, I start working and I'm tracing through those. And then all figure themselves out within an hour session. It's a time frame of work and work on your part, which is why I like working with athletes, because you're not bringing me the same couch potato body that has only been holding a phone and pushing a remote, which is why everything else hurts. You're bringing to me the next phase of whatever you've done.
Yeah.
And it's always a guessing game when an athlete arrives, because...
Well, that's... Sharing with this story, you know, I have a friend that I sent to you. You know, we'll keep his name private for obvious reasons. But from what I heard, you were able to tell that he had this injury from like years ago when he crashed into a tree or something on a mountain bike.
Yeah.
Is this true? Like, what happened?
I can, and I often feel it in just a regular massage from impact. So we already talked about your impact that you did just yesterday, but that plays into the body. So an impact, like I often feel it on regular people from a car accident. So my question to them is, which direction were you looking when you got into the car accident? Because that moment of fear, and then you go into alternative medicine, you go into acupuncture when you're dealing with fear. Which direction when you were looking at that moment of impact? Because if you were looking out your side mirror, that affects the way everything else is playing down the body. If you were looking up at your rear view mirror, that affects the way everything plays out in your body. So when you fell, I'm looking forward, you said you didn't have video of it.
Yeah.
So I won't be able to see the fall.
Yeah.
But there was another impact, and
Yep, I landed on my head.
yeah, so that then plays out, and it's not going to play out in your head where you landed, it's going to play out in your lower spine. And then that takes me into the idea of cranial sacral. And then that's a whole slower process of massage therapy, where I'm really just slowing everything down and going in and holding your spinal column to find out where it's flowing and where it's not flowing. So it's very minimal, like it's very quiet work, and I have a hard time doing it. I do not tote myself as a cranial sacral therapist, but I can do it, and I can do it for a little while, just to get in touch with the spine, and then figure out which muscles we need to repattern after that.
I love going down this rabbit hole. You know, I always tell people my body's like my own science experiment. So I want to know everything about it and stuff like that. So let's analyze me, right? Let's get that started. All right.
So this was the road to recovery. That's this. This is a welcome. Typically, the most important thing with a massage therapy is to breathe. Okay. So in that, I will encourage you to breathe on the massage table. When I'm working, when I hit those spots that are painful, to inhale deeply and then exhale allows me to know that I'm in a spot that might not be so comfortable for you. And then it also allows you to take control back over the amount of pain that you are receiving. Because if you inhale deeply, that's a sharpening of the pain. If you're exhaling, then it's a lessening of the pain.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And then if you're going...
Yeah, like when I stretch and I'm trying to touch my toes and all that stuff, I exhale and relax and try to flow through that stretch because it's painful when
Right.
you're trying to extend distances. So yeah, it makes sense.
It helps you to move. When you're on a massage table, sometimes it's faux pas to make any noise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with somebody aggressively breathing because it's knowing that that is moving the energy of what's in the body out. You make the same noise when you're aggressively putting the aches and pains into your body.
Mm-hmm.
You don't land a fabulous landing on your whatever you're landing on and not grunt to some degree. So the same thing happens when I'm trying to take that back out of your muscles. Any reasons that you should not receive massage? For you, it wouldn't be pregnancy, but first trimester of pregnancy is, especially with an athlete, is something that's important to stay away from. So that's just something I throw on the table. Any skin infections, infectious disease, open wounds, phlebitis, burns, any form of cancers we need to talk about, fever, stomach virus, or low platelet count. If you are on antibiotics, I do not recommend getting a massage either.
Why is that?
Because when the antibiotics are in the system, it is attacking the body, and there's a fight going on in the body. When you receive massage at any kind of level, it is enhancing the circulatory system, so you are riling up the fight, so to speak.
Even with like a quote relaxing massage that people go
Yeah.
through? Oh.
So what has happened when people are in my office and want to receive a massage and have just started a course of antibiotics, I really recommend that they don't. Some will go away. Some are like devastated because their body hurts because they're sick already.
Mm-hmm.
So I go into more of an energy work type of thing. You know what I mean? A little bit of work on the feet, a little bit of work on the hands, a lot more of just touching.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, conventional thought would be like, oh, I'm in pain and I'm on antibiotics, I need to relax and you'll get a
Right.
massage.
It's the opposite, because then the next day your body is tore up. So
Gotcha.
it's really important. So that's a few things to be
Okay.
aware of. What do you wear? You can wear whatever's comfortable. Some people are underneath the sheet and completely naked, and that's comfortable for them. They will only be exposed with what is going to be exposed through the sheet. So I fold the sheet down, I expose that body area, I cover it back up, I move on to the next area. Typically with sports massage, most people just come in with what they wear. When I work at the end of a bike marathon, they are sweaty and gross and the table is not covered with nice sheets. It's actually just being wiped down and toweled down after the next person, after the next person. So whatever condition you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with, because my controlled environment is the sheet. Okay, and then what should you expect afterwards? So with my deep tissue massage, it is not always a walk in the park the next day. You will be very aware of the muscles that are the weaker muscles in the body, or the muscles that have had a lot more tension and a lot more of the chemical buildup that needs to be stretched out continuously. So I always recommend drinking water, a hot bath with Epsom salts, things like that really help to soothe the body. And then just really stretch, but you just keep
does
going.
Epsom salts like really work? I feel like it's placebo. I don't know.
I don't know
I'm skeptical
either.
on it.
Yes, so I have been toting that for years to people, and I had a good friend, Fred, who started running, and I said that to him, and he looked at me crazy, and then he loves me, so he went and did it, and he's like, wow, Michelle, it really helped.
Okay. I mean, I still have them. I still do it, but I'm wondering, is it 50-50 or is it a little bit both?
I don't understand the whole chemistry behind it, but somehow it's pulling that out of through the skin, which is where we're supposed to release most of our toxins.
Which begs the question, is like, all the crap that people put on their skin these days. They're like, oh, perfumes and this and that and lotions, and it's like, what's really in it if it is, going through your skin?
That's one of the first things we take away at massage school. You're not allowed to wear perfumes. You're not allowed to wear, most of the time I just use a coconut oil because it is a simple base that everyone can accept on their body.
Yeah.
If they can't, you know what I mean, we have other oils, but at times I had used an almond oil, a thicker jojoba oil, different things like that, and but none of it with scents, right? Scents is something that you ask about. But with massage, arnica for sports massage is also a good one to apply. So using a gel or massage lotion with an arnica in it helps to also heal and recover all that insaneness that you're putting into your muscles.
I read that lemongrass oil is good for ligaments and stuff like that.
I'm imagining so. I love lemongrass.
I do too. I was looking it up. I was like, I want to, because again, I'm trying to stretch out my tendons and everything. So I put lemongrass on around behind my knee and on my groin area, and I went to the ninja gym smelling like a giant lemon.
Lemongrass?
Yeah.
At least you didn't stink.
Right. At the beginning, at least.
So we'll skip all that stuff, but when was the last time you had a massage?
Probably the last time we worked together, I think.
So over a year.
Actually, I got a quote sports massage done when we went on vacation
Okay.
to Punta Cana, and I just remember leaving there and like, this is not
I
a
want a
sports
massage.
No. You set the
Shoot me around a little bit.
You set the bar so high. I was like, it was good. It came with the vacation package, so I was like, well, I might as well. I already paid for it.
Right.
But that was Thanksgiving a year and a few months ago.
Yeah.
So probably 14, 15 months.
Okay.
And then before that was when we worked together.
Yeah. All right, so it's not a regular thing.
No.
Okay.
Though it should be.
Do you have any difficulty lying on your front, back, or side?
No.
Okay. How do you typically sleep? On your front, back, or side?
I sleep on my back without a pillow, just like flat.
Okay.
I actually can't stand on a pillow. To me, it feels weird on my neck.
Have you had many head injuries?
Yeah.
Okay. That just indicates to me that you have.
Yeah, I compressed my. Well, here's the story. When I did BMX, bicycle motocross is what they call it. But I just, as a teenager, a trick bike kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think I was 14 or 15 years old, and I made a ramp, and I wanted to try to do a no footer. Take my feet off the pedals while I was in the midair. And when I did that, I didn't have the spatial awareness to know not to put my weight through my handlebars. So I literally just went right upside down. I mean, I was wearing a helmet, but my whole impact went right through my head, right down my spine, and squished me like. And that
Impact was the front there or the top?
The very
there?
top of my head. I mean, all that force coming down with the bike behind me, and then use that. My head was like a springboard off the ground, and then that was an ambulance trip to the ER. I wore a neck brace for like a week, and that injury, I got a tattoo on my back, and we'll see that in the video later. And even the tattoo artist knew I had some kind of neck injury when he was doing my back.
Yeah.
And I got chiropractic help to undo a lot of that damage, and that helped me get into the military, because that was actually a roadblock for me.
The injury was?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And that, mainly, you keep pointing, it affected the left side. Is that what you keep pointing to?
I don't know if I'm just using my left hand. I talk
with your left
my
hand.
left hand. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's just one incident.
That's one.
Okay.
That's one of the major ones.
Do you want to run through all of them?
As for what, head injuries?
Yeah.
I mean, there's times I have so many.
Yeah.
When I was in kindergarten, I was on the rings, and I put my feet up over my head, so my shoulders got locked out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get myself back around. And I was like, I could see the ground. I'm like, I'll just let go and land on my feet. I let go and landed on my face. So I split my forehead open with that.
Oh, I don't mean to laugh.
Yeah, no, these are funny. I mean, I gave my mom all the gray hair.
Yeah,
no
doubt. Oh my gosh.
My cousin and I were throwing rocks into a mud puddle because it just rained, because I'm a country kid, and I picked up this giant rock. I'm like, this is going to make the biggest splash ever. We threw it up in the air with 2 hands, and we were looking down, waiting for the splash. It literally came down on the top of my head and split my head open.
Oh my god.
Another trip to the ER. I've had
That was like 7.
most of the, like, I joke about like the timeline in the palm. There's like a split in mine, but then if there's a wrinkle that brings it back together, I was like, oh, maybe I should have died when I was like 5, but I survived, and then
5 to 15.
yeah, and then it goes all the way
frame.
across. Yeah, but like I have an older brother. I was riding on the back pegs of his bike. We were going down the road, and we started flying down this hill because my bike got a flat tire, so we ditched it in the woods, and I'm riding on the back of his, holding his shoulders. Him being big brother, starts shaking the bike. Oh my god, we're gonna crash! Quick, jump off! I'm like, really? Okay, because he's my older brother, you know.
Right.
I'm just gonna listen to what he says. And he's like, I'm just kidding, but it was too late. I literally just jumped off, doing like 20 miles an hour down the road. So, it's like I just remember the wind whistling, like slow motion, and my feet hit the ground, face into the pavement.
Right down.
And that was like a week before school started, so I went to school with bandages all over my face. So it's good for my self-esteem.
Yeah, that was good. That was what age?
4th grade.
Fourth grade.
10 years old maybe.
All right, that was a good one.
Yeah, those are.
So a lot of impacts.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I've had concussions. I've had concussions I didn't even like tell my parents about, that they didn't know about, where I like slammed the back of my head on a bike ramp, and I forgot. I had no short-term memory. I learned this the next day at school, where my friend had called me.
Check on you?
He just called me to talk about whatever was the day and homework and stuff. And I'd forgotten. I brought snacks up to my bedroom, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, it's my lucky day! Like, look, I got like this candy bars and stuff." And we were talking about something. Then he would say, "Hey, Mike, go look at your dresser." I'm like, "Why?" And then I go like, "Oh my god, there's candy there! Like, how did you know?" I was like, "I don't know." He was messing with me. And apparently, and one thing I always do was when my dad would come home from work, I'd go down there and shake his hand and say hi to my father. I must have done that like 3 or 4 times, not realizing that I already did it. And he was getting mad at me. He's like, why do you keep doing this? Like, it's not funny anymore. But my parents had no idea that I smashed the back of my head on a bike ramp in our backyard like an hour earlier.
Right.
And
you had lost your brain.
I lost that whole day of school and everything. Like, I got in trouble for skipping class and stuff, and I was like, I don't remember anything that happened. The teacher's like, well, just because you don't remember doesn't mean it didn't happen. So, yeah.
Your teacher loved you.
Oh yeah, a lot of head trauma.
Okay. All right. So that tells me that the first thing that we're going to do is craniosacral. Okay. And then we're just going to get in and just, because also your adrenal system is on go, 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 get in and just kind of try to quiet that down first. And then go from there. Yeah. Is my thought process. So sports and hobbies, you've just pretty much are go, go, go.
Yeah, a lot of endurance cycling. I stopped running because of the knee problem that we just mentioned earlier in the video, and that's something that you tried to help me with a while ago, 2 years now, I think.
So is that a goal, is to get back to running?
I've given up at this point. I don't know. I like cycling. Cycling doesn't bother me. But even this morning on my elliptical, you know, when I get to like 45 minutes or so, it just feels tension.
And you do sit at a computer for a long amount of time.
I get up. But yeah, I have a desk job for the most part, you know.
All right, so that's a lot of the psoas, and I left that over there. Just getting that to actually be stretched out is going to play a big part of what's going on with your body.
I've heard about the psoas. There's a guy I follow, he's a former Navy SEAL, and I guess his psoas was so tight, he said it was toxic on the inside out, and just from years of it, so.
Yeah, I have a whole law enforcement philosophy. The way that they have to wear belts, the belts that they have on, cause so many issues for their hips and their internal organs.
Oh yeah.
And this is coming from work that I did years and years ago on a retired police officer. Mm-hmm. You know, so the cars haven't gotten any better. The way that they have to sit hasn't gotten any better. The belts have gotten heavier, and now with all the Kevlar and the additional weight on top, really throws their psoas into contraction, and they have to go at a fight or flight moment, and then all of a sudden everything tears up, and their back is just where they feel the pain, but it's coming from the front, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. My key things, I definitely want to work on, you know, my knee, I don't need that so much. Because that's a long distance, that's an endurance type thing, but for what I'm doing now, which is ninja training, the knee is like, you know, I would say number 2 in the priority. Number 1 would be my elbow, where I fell and dislocated that back about a decade ago. And what I was saying off camera, when I do curls, you know, a bicep curl, I have to do the hammer curl, which is a neutral position where your hands are like this instead of like this. Because when I curl up, like I said, it feels like somebody's plucking a guitar string and that nerve somewhere around there. And I just want to see what we can do.
So when I was watching your video, I do just want to throw this out there because it makes sense that you are much more aware of hand placement because of this injury. So when you are doing catches, you do hand positions that I wouldn't think of often.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh. But now it makes sense to me that that's why you're doing it, because you're protecting and guarding, but it's creating more of a balance for you in your movements, the way that you use your arms together. But let's move through that so it's not hurting, but I like the way that it has made you process your catches.
I definitely feel very guarded
on that side.
on the right side of my body.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's definitely an awareness, and I like to make it not so aware sometimes. I'm doing my workout so I can push my body. Cause I can't do heavy weights with a curl because it'll just ache for days after that.
Up. Yeah.
Yep. And then one thing I didn't talk about earlier, but we already know through other media, social media, is that I'm trying to do a split. Like that's one of my goals.
Yeah.
And I know it takes at least 6 months for tendons and everything to stretch out safely. And so I'm trying to make progress, doing a full side split, and I'm touching my toes now. Like one thing I always told myself is like, I'm not a flexible person. I was born with tight ligaments. That's just how I am. And I'm like, no, that's nonsense. I'm going to start stretching now. So when I wake up in the morning, instead of getting my hands halfway past my shin and being able to barely touch the top of my sock, I can wake up in the morning and touch my top of my toe, which is a huge improvement. And then after I get warmed up, I can wrap my hands now around the bottom of my foot.
Good.
Which is
You're really working.
I'm working on it now. I'm getting to the point where I get my thumbs to touch the floor when I'm bending over, and then I'm almost at a flat hand press. I mean, I can get all my digits, and there's like probably an inch and a quarter of my palm is off the floor. I'm trying to get that flat press.
When you're trying to get that flat press, where do you feel it the most? In your ribs or in your hamstrings?
It's in my hamstrings. I've been conscious of my breath and feeling my ribs. I'm like, okay, exhale slowly, relax my torso, and I do feel it in my spine too. When I'm bending over, I'm trying. It's a pike position, so I'm pulling my chin down. I can feel it going over the curve of my back. But then once I'm cognizant of that and I can relax that, like, okay, I've moved through that point, and now it's like my hamstrings are so tight.
They just won't go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that just goes with the trigger points along in the IT band and everything else. All right. And so with that, the knowledge that you are stretching the tendons and the fascia and the ligaments means that the work that I'm going to do is just going to enhance the work that you're doing. You know what I mean? You're already putting the effort in to repair what's going on. Now I can hit those trigger points, move through them so that we can just keep you stretching. You'll see a huge difference. Workstation car, you do often drive distances, yes?
Yeah, yep. Got a half-hour commute, and then I got 2 kids. I'm driving around, going to daycare, going to school, back and forth, a lot of that. So yeah.
All right. So that plays out into the foot too. Repetitive patterns. What's your most repetitive pattern in your work?
When I am at the studio, I'm literally sitting at a desk and moving my hand around.
That right one?
Yeah, right-handed, doing a lot of editing. I have it's a lot like drawing. It's a computerized airbrush on a tablet, so I'm moving my wrist around almost like I'm drawing.
How big is the tablet? They used to be small. Are they bigger now?
It's a medium size. It's probably like 10-inch diameter on that.
Just to see how far you get to extend, because that's going to be a lot of pec stuff if you're locked into this little area right there.
Yeah. Well, one of my workout routines is this is we're at the beginning of February, almost middle of February. I started this at the beginning of the year. I do a lateral raise, like a side raise, with a 3-pound weight, and I do 1,000 of them. I work my way up to 1,000 of those. So I'm doing those almost every day, if not at least 500 a day. And then with the hammer curl, the bicep curl, I'm using a 5-pound weight, and I'm doing 1,000 of those.
All right.
So I'm flapping like a bird.
Yeah.
You know, and working on all that stuff.
Okay. When you do that, does it pull into your hips too?
Not with the lightweight.
What are you doing with your hips when you're doing that? Where are your legs? You're sitting, standing?
I'm standing, watching TV because it's boring. It takes me 17 minutes to get through these. It's just, one every second. I'm just standing there, and sometimes I'm walking around.
Okay. Walking around is probably better than just standing there. If you're going to stand there, try to raise one foot up over the other to take your hips alignment out of the equation when you're doing the upper body movement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I haven't thought about that. Why would I want to do
Because
that?
if you are locked in your hips in a funky way that's always protected your shoulder, then you're always going to just do the same 1,000 reps the same way.
Okay.
If you switch every few minutes to a different position in your legs stance,
Okay.
then your body has to adjust, and then you're not getting the same bicep movement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because 1,000's a lot, so that's a bit of time spent
Yeah.
doing that. But you can then trick your body into allowing you to do it the easy way by locking into and zoning out
Okay.
and just swinging through.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other position I'm locked in is when I'm doing my miles on my bike because I'm on a
That's
station.
a forward.
I'm a stationary trainer. Yeah. Your feet are locked into the pedals, and you're hunched right over, kind of. And I got a triathlon bike, so I have these what they call aero bars. So I don't have to hold the handles all the time, like a normal, like Lance Armstrong would be.
Right.
I get to lean forward, tuck my elbows
Drop
in.
you even more.
Yeah, and that's what we call the aero position, so you're more aerodynamic.
So what happens with your glutes in that?
It's actually, a triathlon, from what I've heard, from not a pro cyclist, but
Yeah.
a triathlon bike is set up a little bit different than a road cycling bike.
Okay.
So that way it'll save your quads, because in a triathlon, when you get off the bike, you got to run. So
Okay.
it puts more emphasis on your glutes and,
Okay.
and your hamstrings to do the bike effort, so that way you have a little bit of energy left to go run.
In the quads.
Yeah.
So that's making you strengthen that more.
Yep, and then that was a flexibility thing too, because it's not always fun to be in that aero position, being rolled forward a lot.
Especially with your spine.
Yeah, because your spine's rolled forward, but then you have your chin up too, because
Yeah.
you got to see down the road.
Yeah.
Or watch YouTube, which is what I do.
Well, drop your head and get in the zone.
Yeah.
Because you want to figure out that best alignment right there. Is how to, So if you can put on a podcast rather than watching YouTube, and take your eyes out of the equation, that's going to change a lot just because of all the spine impact that you have had going on. For fatigue, for everything. And really work on what's going on through here in holding that position. Don't just drop it.
Yeah. One thing,
Hold
what I'm fearful of is I don't want to be so relaxed, whereas when I do get on the road, that it'll be harder for me to keep my chin up. Because spring is going to be right around the corner, and I'm not going to be on the trainer as much.
So you are going to be on the road.
Yeah.
Well, fine. Then do it your way. It's just, it's a lot on your spine.
Yeah.
And that's a lot on your hips too. I could see that as you lean forward. All right, are you under medical supervision going through all this? Do you have a doctor?
Yeah.
Okay. You have seen your doctor? Well, you pretty much monitor your heart often.
I wear a heart rate monitor with everything I do, and I get blood work done every 6 months. Get my checkups done every 6 months.
Okay. Goals are elbow and knee on the right side.
Yes.
So again, I don't know if I said it with the cameras on, but the idea that because it's one-sided, it makes me think into the acupuncture world of gallbladder meridian, and really trying to also look at balancing the body out energetically at that direction, if that makes sense. Surgeries?
No.
No surgeries?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. And then accidents. We've gone through a list of them. Any others pop into your head? Driving accidents?
Yeah, I flipped my parents' SUV
Flipped.
when I was 17. I
Okay.
got my license.
Side-to-side flip?
Okay, so I was speeding down a dirt road, started fishtailing,
Yeah.
and I swerved across the road. I hit a dirt embankment,
Yeah.
put the vehicle up in the air, so we were airbound, hit a tree on the front driver's side, and then that flipped us upside down where we landed on the back of it and rolled forward and just slid down the road upside down for
Yeah.
a couple hundred feet.
Seatbelt on.
Seatbelt on.
Held in place.
Held in place. My little
That's-
sister was with me, unfortunately. We both didn't have any injuries, but I crawled out where the window used to be, and I had to like go around the other side and like undo my sister and pull her out of the vehicle and stuff. And we were by ourselves. And
Scary.
scary. It was nighttime, so once we hit the tree and the lights went out, it was just all sensory.
What was going on at that point?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, that was a 17 too.
Mm.
All right.
Like I said, you look at my hand line or
that
whatever.
time
like-
frame extended beyond 15.
Yes.
It's now at 17. 17 to 24 maybe. When did you meet your wife? She settled you down.
Yeah, we met before, or I mean after all of this stuff, so I was
Yeah.
already kind of like
Settled.
yeah.
Settling.
The pendulum was swinging the other direction.
All right, allergies? Any allergies?
None.
Skin conditions?
Allergic to poison ivy. That's
I
it.
won't apply poison ivy. Varicose veins, circulatory disorders, high or low blood pressure.
I have a slightly elevated blood pressure,
Okay.
which now, because they've changed the standards, is actually just moderate.
Right.
You know, but you know, a couple years ago it was high blood
It
pressure.
was high. Okay.
Which I still think should be high, just because they, you know.
Because they've changed that dynamic.
They
and you're a
changed the
smaller
dynamic.
body compared to some of the men that they're taking the
Well,
American standard.
I think it's because I'm high strung,
Right.
and I've had a high blood pressure every time, even in the military. 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, they're like, you're high blood pressure, you know, and they want to put me on medication. I said absolutely not. So I started cutting out salt and eating more potassium, and lo and
I don't
behold,
do blood pressure, but it would be really interesting to monitor yours after a massage, because that's one of the big things is that we do drop your blood pressure.
Well, and I'm such a huge believer now in the mind over matter thing, because I'm being a military veteran. When I go do my checkups every 6 months, I go to the VA.
Yeah.
And being part of the VA, they have to ask you these questions. They're like, are you suicidal? Are you think of, you know, killing anybody? Do you want to harm people? All the things. Do you have stable housing? Et cetera, et cetera. They're asking me these questions while they're doing my blood pressure, because they're just like trying to get all the timing, like, oh, you're in, you're
Everything,
out. You know, it's like, they're like, your blood pressure's elevated. And I'm like, yeah, because you're asking me if I want to kill people or if I'm going to kill myself. I'm like, don't ask me those questions while you're doing my blood pressure. So I asked her to leave the room, gave myself 2 minutes, did a breathing exercise, closed my eyes, and I just imagined like cold running water over a stream or whatever. It was like, it just dropped.
Dropped right down.
I'm like, imagine that, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, so when you're asking other veterans if they're going to kill themselves, don't do while they're doing blood pressure.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So
Oh my
hopefully,
gosh.
hopefully
Change
my thing
that,
can change the system in a little tiny way.
Or at least one person.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense though, because they do. Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Whatever. Life is crazy. No osteoarthritis. Your bones are strong.
Yes.
Headaches.
Nope, no headaches.
Epilepsy.
None.
Phlebitis.
What is that? that blood thing?
Yeah. Emotional difficulties.
No.
Diabetes.
Nope.
Joint disorders.
Mm-mm.
Digestive conditions.
No.
Any decreased feelings. I mean, not emotional feeling. Any
I'm so sad right now.
appendage decreased feeling, like fingers,
sensory
toes,
stuff?
yeah, ears, nose.
Oh, that does make me think something. When I'm doing the bicycle, sometimes my right foot gets tingly. Like it almost feels like it's falling asleep.
The whole entire foot.
Starts from the toes and works its way back to probably midfoot.
Yeah, you start fatiguing. Okay.
See, I'm glad we do these questions, because then it's like what you said when you're doing massage. Like you work from here, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're over here, then you're going back, because just the way the story
It's
gets
all
told.
tied together.
Yeah.
That's the fun part for me. That's why I love massage, though. After all these years, it's still, I can tell so many different things about somebody, but just by putting my hands on their body, because their story is in their body.
Mm-hmm.
They've put it in there. I am just taking it out, and the work that I do is that different. It's not about relaxation at times. I try my best to do relaxation when people want relaxation. I have hot rocks to help relax the muscles without doing the deep tissue sometimes. But when I find a trigger point, I know that trigger point has to go away. And that's when the hot rocks come out, because that's, instead of digging in with an elbow and manually manipulating to get that muscle to move, a hot rock actually softens the muscle and the fascia and allows for a much more comfortable movement of that muscle that needs to go back to where it needs to go, rather than digging in so deeply. I've got all the information I need.
Great.
I did set up over here the thing to look at your body, the asymmetrical points,
Okay.
if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, that's funny. Asymmetry. I had a nickname when I was in the military. They called me Hellboy. I don't know if you ever heard of that comic book or whatever.
Yeah.
So the character's got this huge right arm. It's
Right.
like the death thing. So my right side, they would look at me and tell me my right arm and my right side's bigger than my left side. So I was like, really? I didn't think it was that noticeable, but so they would call me Hellboy and just pick on me, kind of.
That's great. I love that movie. That makes sense though, because that's your camera arm.
Yeah, I'm right-handed.
So,
Well, Nicole said it just like a week ago. She was like, "Is your right side bigger than you?" Like I was doing my lateral things, and then the blood starts pumping up, and she's like, well, probably, I don't know.
now I'm gonna call you Hellboy.
Yeah, go for it.